My name is Sophie Carter, and I am 29 years old. I'm 8 months pregnant and the CEO of Harbor Tech Solutions, a company my father built from the ground up. 6 months ago, my father passed away unexpectedly, leaving me as the sole heir to his $200 million company. The weight of this responsibility has been overwhelming, but I've poured my heart into protecting his legacy. It hasn't been easy, balancing the demands of running a company and preparing for motherhood. I thought I had a partner in my husband, Ryan, a man I trusted and loved. But trust can be a fragile thing, and I would soon learn just how much he had betrayed me. Late one night, as I reviewed financial documents, something unusual caught my attention. A stock transfer document listed 40% of the company's shares under Ryan's name. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but as I examined the document, my stomach churned. My signature was on the form, clear as day, but I hadn't signed anything. My heart raced as the reality hit me. The signature was forged. Ryan had stolen from me, no, from my father's legacy. I sat there in disbelief, trying to process the betrayal. My mind replayed the small signs I had ignored: Ryan's sudden interest in board meetings, his questions about company finances. It all pointed to this moment. I couldn't let it go. Clutching the forged document, I marched into the living room where Ryan sat casually scrolling through his phone. "Ryan," I said, my voice sharp and trembling with anger. "What is this?" He barely glanced at me. "What's the problem, Sophie?" "The problem," I snapped, holding the document up, "is that you forged my signature to steal 40% of Harbor Tech. Care to explain?" He smirked, leaning back on the couch as though he found my fury amusing. "Relax, Sophie. I'm your husband. What's yours is mine. You're overwhelmed running that company, and I'm just ensuring it's taken care of." Ensuring it's taken care of. My voice rose with indignation. By committing fraud? By stealing from me? Ryan stood, his smirk vanishing. His tone turned cold. "Don't act like you're some business genius. You can barely keep things afloat. I'm entitled to this, Sophie. You wouldn't have that company without me by your side." The audacity of his words stunned me. "You had no right," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "You can't just take what doesn't belong to you." His face twisted with irritation, and before I could react, he raised his hand and struck me across the face. The force of the slap sent me stumbling, and my head slammed against the wall. Pain shot through me as I crumpled to the floor, clutching my stomach in fear for my baby. As I lay there, bruised and battered, I looked up at the man I had once trusted with my life. He stood over me, unrepentant. "You won't get away with this," I said, my voice steady despite the tears streaming down my face. Ryan didn't respond. He turned and walked away, leaving me on the floor. In that moment, I made a vow. I would fight back, not just for myself, but for my baby and the legacy my father left in my care. The moment Ryan left the room, I knew I had to act quickly. My body ached and my head throbbed, but my instincts told me to get out before things escalated further. I struggled to my feet, cradling my stomach. Every movement reminded me of the life I was protecting, not just my own, but my baby's. Reaching for my phone, I called Kate Williams, my lawyer and a trusted family friend. Her voice was calm but firm as I explained what had happened. "Sophie, listen to me. You need to leave that house now. Go somewhere safe. I'll handle the legal side, but your safety comes first." Kate's words gave me clarity. I packed a small bag with essentials, clothes, my prenatal vitamins, and the forged document. My hands trembled as I worked, every sound in the house making my heart race. I didn't know where Ryan was, but I couldn't risk running into him again. Once ready, I slipped out the door and into my car. The drive to my mother's house in Portland felt like a blur. Grace Carter, my mother, had always been my rock, and I knew she would protect me. When I arrived, Grace opened the door, her expression shifting from surprise to alarm the moment she saw my bruised face. "Sophie, what happened?" Tears welled up in my eyes as I stepped inside. It's Ryan. He hit me. And he forged documents to steal part of Harbor Tech. Grace's face hardened with fury. That man will pay for this, she said, her voice trembling with anger. You're staying here. He's not coming near you or my grandchild. As Grace helped me to the couch, I called Kate again. She assured me that she had already filed an emergency injunction to freeze the fraudulent stock transfer. We'll prove the forgery, Sophie, Kate said. But for now, focus on staying safe. I'll keep you updated. Grace sat beside me, holding my hand. You did the right thing by leaving, she said softly. You're stronger than he realizes. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ryan's face, his anger, and the moment he struck me. But fear wasn't the only thing I felt. Determination burned inside me. I wouldn't let him win. By morning, Kate had more updates. The injunction has been approved, she said over the phone. Ryan can't access the shares or sell them. I'm building a case to expose his forgery. Do you have any additional evidence? I have the original forged document, I replied, and I think there may be emails on his laptop that could help. Kate's voice was steady. Good, we'll get everything we need. Stay with your mother for now. We'll take this one step at a time. As I hung up, I felt a glimmer of hope. Ryan had betrayed me in the worst way, but I wasn't powerless. I had my mother, Kate, and a fierce resolve to protect my baby and my father's legacy. 2 days after escaping to my mother's house, I started to feel a small sense of safety. Grace's unwavering support and Kate's swift legal actions gave me hope that I could reclaim control of my life. But Ryan was not the type to let things go quietly. It happened one afternoon when Grace and I were sitting in our living room discussing the next steps. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway made us both pause. I peeked through the curtains and froze. Ryan was here. Sophie, he yelled, his voice booming from outside. You can't hide forever. We need to talk. My heart raced as fear gripped me. Grace stood and grabbed her phone. Stay here, she said firmly. If he tries to come in, I'm calling the police. Ryan didn't wait for an invitation. He stormed up to the front door and started pounding on it. Open up, Sophie. I'm your husband. You can't just run away like this. Grace stepped forward, keeping her voice calm but resolute. Ryan, leave. You're trespassing. If you don't go now, I'm calling the police. You can't keep me from my wife, Ryan shouted, his anger evident. She's carrying my child. I have every right to see her. From behind the door, I spoke, my voice steady despite the fear. Ryan, go home. You're not welcome here. If you want to talk, do it through my lawyer. He kicked the door, his frustration boiling over. You think you can shut me out? This isn't over, Sophie. I'll see you in court, and you'll regret this. Grace raised her phone, showing him she was dialing. I've already called the police, Ryan. Leave before you make things worse. Ryan glared at the door for a moment longer before turning and storming back to his car. As he drove off, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The tension in the room was suffocating. Are you okay? Grace asked, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. I nodded, though my hands were still trembling. He won't stop, Mom. He thinks he can scare me into submission. Grace's eyes narrowed. Let him try. He'll find out soon enough that he underestimated you. That evening, Kate called with more good news. The restraining order has been approved, she informed me. Ryan is legally prohibited from contacting you or coming near you. If he violates it, he'll face immediate consequences. Hearing those words gave me a small sense of relief, but I knew Ryan wouldn't back down so easily. His threats hung in the air like a storm cloud, but I was determined to see this through. I wouldn't let fear control me, and I wouldn't let him steal my future. As I hung up the phone, I glanced at my mother. Her strength and resolve mirrored my own. Together, we would face whatever came next. The legal fight against Ryan began in earnest. Kate wasted no time gathering evidence to prove the forgery. I provided her with the fraudulent stock transfer document and detailed the night I discovered it. Kate's calm confidence reassured me, even as the weight of the situation bore down on me. "I'll need access to Ryan's emails," Kate said during one of our calls. "If he discussed this with anyone, we can use it against him in court." I hesitated but nodded. "He usually keeps his laptop at home. I might be able to give you the login details." Kate's strategy was meticulous. She requested testimonies from employees at Harbor Tech who had witnessed Ryan's behavior, including his abrupt appearances at board meetings. Meanwhile, she subpoenaed the notary whose signature appeared on the forged document. The first court hearing arrived faster than I expected. I sat beside Kate in the courtroom, my stomach tight with nerves. Ryan, seated across from me, exuded arrogance, as though he believed he would walk away unscathed. But Kate was prepared. "We have clear evidence that the stock transfer was forged," Kate began, presenting the document to the judge. "The signature claiming to be Mrs. Sophie Carter's does not match verified samples of her handwriting. Furthermore, the notary listed on the document has confirmed that no such transaction took place in their presence." The notary's testimony was damning. She explained that Ryan had pressured her to notarize the document without Sophie present, a clear violation of protocol. Kate followed up by presenting a handwriting expert who confirmed the forgery. Ryan's lawyer attempted to argue that the transfer was legitimate, but the judge was unconvinced. "Based on the evidence presented, I am reversing the stock transfer," the judge declared. "Full ownership of Harbor Tech Solutions is restored to Mrs. Carter." Relief washed over me, but I knew this was just the beginning. Kate filed additional charges against Ryan, including fraud, corporate espionage, and domestic violence. She worked tirelessly to compile a case so airtight that even Ryan's best efforts couldn't poke holes in it. The second hearing focused on these charges. I took the stand, recounting the night Ryan hit me and the threats he made. My voice wavered at times, but I pushed through, knowing the truth needed to be heard. Kate presented emails recovered from Ryan's laptop, where he discussed selling the stolen shares to a competitor. Employees from Harbor Tech testified about his erratic behavior and his attempts to manipulate the company's finances. The security team corroborated my story about his threats at the office. As the judge reviewed the evidence, Ryan's confidence faltered. When the final ruling came, the judge's voice was firm. "Ryan Carter is found guilty of forgery, fraud, corporate espionage, and domestic violence. He is sentenced to 10 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution for damages caused." Watching Ryan being led away in handcuffs was a moment of closure. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of justice. My father's legacy was safe, and Ryan could no longer hurt me or my child. Even with the court's ruling, Ryan's arrogance didn't waver. Days before he was due to begin his prison sentence, he violated the restraining order in a final desperate act of defiance. I was in my office at Harbor Tech Solutions, meeting with my team to discuss the future of the company, when I heard a commotion in the lobby. My assistant rushed in, her face pale. "Sophie, Ryan is here. He's causing a scene." My chest tightened, but I forced myself to remain calm. "Call security and the police," I instructed. "Don't let him come any closer." From behind the glass walls of my office, I could see him yelling at the front desk staff, demanding to see me. His voice carried through the room, a toxic mixture of rage and desperation. "You think you can take everything from me, Sophie," he bellowed. "This isn't over." Security arrived within minutes, escorting him out of the building as he continued shouting threats. I stood by the window, watching as the police arrived to handle the situation. Ryan's actions only added to the growing list of charges against him. Later that day, Kate called with an update. "The police have taken Ryan into custody," she said. "Violating the restraining order just solidifies the court's decision. He'll face additional consequences for this." Her words brought a sense of relief. Ryan's downfall was no longer just a legal matter. It was a turning point in reclaiming my life. In the days that followed, the finality of the situation began to sink in. Ryan was now facing over a decade behind bars, and I was free from his manipulations and threats. The nightmare he had created was finally over. My focus shifted entirely to rebuilding what he had tried to destroy. I held meetings with the board and employees, reassuring them that HarborTech was back on solid ground. The support from my team was overwhelming. "You've shown incredible strength through all of this, Sophie," said Mark, one of my senior executives. "Your father would be proud." Those words stayed with me as I walked through the company's halls, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. HarborTech wasn't just a company, it was a symbol of my resilience and my father's enduring legacy. Ryan's actions had left scars, but they also taught me invaluable lessons about trust, strength, and perseverance. I would carry those lessons forward, ensuring that no one could ever take advantage of me again. As I prepared for the next chapter of my life, I knew one thing for certain: I was stronger than I had ever been. 2 weeks after Ryan's sentencing, I welcomed the most precious gift into my life, my son Ethan. Holding him for the first time, I felt a wave of emotions I couldn't describe. He was perfect, his tiny fingers gripping mine as if to say, "We're in this together." Sitting in the hospital room, surrounded by my mother and Kate, I realized how far I had come. The bruises Ryan left on me had faded, but the strength I gained during those months would stay with me forever. "Your father would be so proud of you, Sophie," my mother said, tears glistening in her eyes as she cradled Ethan. "You've built a life where he can thrive, and you've protected everything your dad worked for." I smiled, though my heart ached for my father's absence. He would have adored his grandson. I silently promised to raise Ethan with the values my father instilled in me: strength, honesty, and resilience. Returning home from the hospital, I found peace for the first time in what felt like forever. Ethan became my beacon of hope, a reminder of why I fought so hard. HarborTech Solutions also began to thrive under my leadership. Every decision I made wasn't just for the company, but for the future I was building for my son. The team at HarborTech rallied around me, their faith in my leadership stronger than ever. We launched new initiatives, expanded into untapped markets, and honored my father's vision for the company. Watching it flourish felt like a tribute to everything my family had endured. Ryan's presence had been erased from my life completely. His attempts to take what wasn't his had ended in his downfall, and now he was paying the price. Occasionally, I would hear updates about his time in prison, but I didn't dwell on them. He was a chapter in my life that I had closed for good. One sunny afternoon, as I sat in the garden with Ethan in my arms, I felt a deep sense of contentment. My mother joined me, handing me a cup of tea. "You've come a long way, Sophie," she said, her voice filled with pride. "You've shown Ethan what true strength looks like." Looking down at my son's peaceful face, I realized she was right. The fear and pain Ryan had caused were behind me, replaced with a future full of promise and possibility. I would never forget the challenges I faced, but I wouldn't let them define me. My life was now focused on building something beautiful for Ethan, for my family, and for myself. As I kissed Ethan's forehead, I whispered, "We've got this." Together, we were starting a new chapter, one filled with hope, love, and unshakable determination. Thank you so much for reading Sophie's story of resilience, empowerment, and victory. If you enjoyed this journey of triumph over betrayal, there's more to come. Don't forget to show your support by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback means the world to us. It helps us create more stories that inspire and captivate. Let us know what you think about Sophie's journey and how she found her strength. And remember, subscribing to our channel not only keeps you updated with our latest stories, but but also helps us grow our community of storytelling enthusiasts. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload.